Welcome to the Anchor Church podcast. Each week, we'll bring you the teaching from our central campus. We hope it's an encouragement to you. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm doing my best Brian impression today. This is the outfit that he would tell me to wear. This is probably going to come off shortly. That apparently in first service it started rolling down and it was starting to distract people. So I'll start with it, and if it gets too distracting, I'll just take it off, and I'm not doing anything to myself. So, hi, my name's Duke, and this is not only my home church. So it's interesting to share in front of your church because I come back here next week, and so you'll see me again, and I can't run away. But this is actually my service I go to, so normally I'm sitting right over there somewhere. So this is like that whole section I know really well by face. It's my joy to get to be here this morning. It's also scared me a little bit because there's a lot of gifted teachers here, and so I'm not a preacher or a pastor. I'm not going to unpack anything deep in the Bible. I'm just going to talk about the heart of I'm going to share from my heart what I think the heart of God is. And I've loved the fact of being part of this church where we're talking about things that are anti-fragile, talking about conversation topics that are difficult to bring up. They're topics, when we talked about diversity, that's not something that you just walk into the auto shop and say, hey, you want to chat about that? Or at work. Like this could be uncomfortable to broach this subject with some people. But I love that we're bringing it up in a context of faith and what does God want us to do. And so a little bit about myself, so you know where I'm coming from. I have an amazing family. That's really my foundation here. And there's a photo of them from when we were at Christmas. My wife, Amy, is right in front of me. And then my 4 kids, Kiefer is in the white shirt and the jacket right here. Riker, he's my oldest. Riker's my youngest, right next to him. And then on this right-hand side are my 2 daughters, Keely and Brooke. They're off at college, so you don't see them as much around here. But that's really my foundation. And when I come home and I'm stressed at work, that's where I go and hang out and have real life. Kind of find balance. So can't start anything without you guys knowing a little bit about them. I also just want to talk about, so my topic today is talking about poverty. It's something that in this anti-fragile thing, I think gets overlooked. It's something that's easy for people to say, everyone agrees there's poverty. And so it's not maybe the divisive issue, but I think it's very much a divided heart issue for a lot of people. And so I'm going to try and explain that a little more. Just to give you some background of why I'm talking about it. Brian's in Paris, so he just needs someone to fill in for him. But other than that, there's a little bit about, so I'm going to talk about my position I'm coming to is because I'm the director of the Tacoma Rescue Mission. And so we deal with people that are experiencing hunger, experiencing addiction, and experiencing homelessness. And so that's my perspective, that I get to work with a team of fantastic people who have a heart to help people, and this is what we do. So in our slides here, we have just a little bit about the rescue mission so you understand the context if you don't know what that is. It's been serving, this organization has been in Tacoma since 1912. In 1912, a missionary evangelist named Gypsy Smith from the Salvation Army came to Tacoma, and he spoke at the Stadium Bowl and rallied people. It was really just a good old-fashioned evangelism. What are you doing for Jesus? And Jesus loves you, fire and brimstone talk. But his challenge to the community was to the political leaders, to the business leaders, and to the churches, what are you tangibly doing to show love for people in need? And so that became The Tacoma Common Mission, and you'll see on the right-hand side over here, it says Commons Mission. That was the original name. This is the common mission of the agreement. What can we do to help people? So let's start by serving food to the hungry. And so that's the tip of the spear that got going over 100 years ago to say, what are we doing to serve the people that are in the most need right here in our backyard? So not to toot my own horn or organizational horn, but just to give some understanding of the depth of how far that's gone from serving pancakes on a wheelbarrow that's on Pacific Avenue, that photo, to some of the stats about what we do and the scope. So in 2023, over 330,000 meals were served. The meals are served, breakfast and lunch and dinner. It's open to the community. Anyone can come. There's no charge. That's not how many people we serve. That's how many meals went out. 3,700 unique men and women and children were served by the mission. So if you come 4 times, you only get counted once. That's the individuals. 20,000 connections were made through outreach. So on top of the number of people that came to our facilities, then we also have teams that go out in vans and go to encampments all over Pierce County. Gig Harbor, Bonnie Lake, Sumner, Spanaway. They're out there. And they go and they just are making contact with people and saying, what can we do to help you, serve you? What do you need? Providing a cup of noodles, giving a blanket, offering to help. And we actually have people that move out of homelessness into being housed again without ever coming through a shelter just because of the relationships built by that team. There's over 700 people last year that moved into permanent housing or had a job. Which is roughly 2 people a day. So of all the people that come into the mission, roughly 2 people a day are leaving to what we would consider a successful outcome out of homelessness. We had 3,700 hours of programming for children. I don't think people realize that. At any given point, we have 90 to 130 kids that are stayed at the rescue mission. So we partner with other groups, but we have programming for middle school kids, for high school kids. We have a preschool. We have a lot of effort to say, what are we doing to help kids still be kids and stay on track in their childhood so they don't get stuck with the homelessness situation that their family's experiencing. 1,500 hours of mental health or substance abuse disorder support, 60 units of permanent housing, and at any given night, over 500 people are staying under a roof at the rescue mission. So that's kind of the context of the organization. We'll skip it. This is not there's all kinds of other organizations that I partner with. To be clear, Salvation Army, Catholic Community Services, Comprehensive Life Resources, faith-based, non-faith-based groups. It's part of a broad community of support, but it's not enough. From a faith context, I told you I'm not going to get overly, I'm not breaking down scripture in any deep way. I have no idea of Greek and Hebrew. But I do know that themes of the Bible, there's clearly a theme of God's power. There's clearly a theme of salvation. But probably the third most common theme in the Bible is poverty and generosity, and God's heart for that. And there's over 300 verses that deal with it. I'm not going to do all 300. I am going to do a few. So I'm going to start with Matthew 26. This is probably the one that I hear the most from people. They say, oh yeah, Jesus said the poor will always be with us. And so, yeah, the poor will always be with us, but you will not always have me. And the context for that isn't the poor will always be with us, it's okay. It's the poor will always be with us, but I'm here. And Jesus is saying this is the time where Mary has taken a bottle of perfume that's precious and is anointing and washing his feet with it. And he's saying that's a good thing. Because his disciples are saying, why didn't she just why is she doing this? It's wasteful. She should have sold that and given the money to the poor. Hold that thought. Another thing about Jesus that's really cool is he knows the Bible really well. And so he actually wasn't saying this without context. He's actually referencing something that's the Old Testament that was a command from God. So in Deuteronomy, in the laws from God, here's something that God says, give generously to them and do so with a grudging heart. Then because of this, the Lord will bless you in all your work and in everything you put your hand to. There will always be poor people in the land. Therefore, I command you to be open-handed toward your fellow Israelites who are poor and needy in your land. So Jesus is referencing actually a command that's been around for, at that point, thousands of years, to say you should be going out and helping people. But in this situation where the Son of God's with you, yes, this is okay to do. However, I think that a lot of times, I'm gonna, that's enough of my Brian impersonation. I think that in the context of, I hear this a lot where it's like, well, the poor are always here, so it gets easy to overlook. It's easy to say, yeah, but what else are we doing? Or there's something else that's bigger or better, or there might be a better way to handle, someone else can handle poverty. Let's let government handle it. We get a lot of press. The news comes to me frequently, the newspapers, the TV stations, whatever, and they know that if they run an article on something that's happening with homelessness, they're going to get a lot of hits and clicks. Seattle Times did a story a couple months ago, and the reporter called me and said, Duke, that's the most clicked on story we've had all year in the Seattle Times. Can you give people, tell me when you want to do another story? And it's politically a big thing. But in action, there's really not a lot happening. In the old days, the church was known after Jesus' time. One of the unifying things about the early church was how they cared for and loved everyone, and that they organized themselves to care for the widows, the orphans, the poor, the needy, that everyone else overlooked. That Jesus had spent time with lepers and people that were sick and the blind and the outcast. And the Christians picked up on that and continued that work. And until the last couple hundred years, that was the work of the church. And somewhere in the last 150 years, it's become the nonprofit or the governmental organization or the international ministry will be doing this. So let's go to the next, we'll jump to the next slide. Here's I'm going to read this, and then we're going to pull out a couple parts. This is really the foundation for the heart. And it's the parable of the Good Samaritan. And I think the founding of Jesus' heart in this. So on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he said, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? He replied. How do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and when he was attacked by robbers, they stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, and the only time I'm going to hit this is the Samaritan is not the Jew, he's not the Christian, he's not the white guy in the story. He traveled, came where the man was, but when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. And when he put the man on his own donkey and brought him to an inn to take care of him. The next day, he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Which of these three do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on them. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. A couple of things I want to highlight on this that is, I think, the heart. There's whole sermons that go into all the different parts of the Levite and the Pharisee and such. And my favorite part, and this is in the New Living Translation, the Samaritan is passing along the road, and it says, he saw the man and his heart was moved with compassion. I think that's the coolest synopsis of what Jesus is calling us to do. Can you see someone in need and have your heart be open to compassion, even when it's the person who has nothing in common with you? The other part of this that's just fascinating to me is the compassion compelled the action to be way more than just, oh, I'm bandaging you up and saying you're going to be okay, or I gave you some water, or I helped you out a little bit. It was, he went 5 steps to restoration. He wanted this person to be restored to full strength. So it wasn't just, I did this, it's now I give up my donkey. Now I'm taking you here. I'm caring for you. I'm making sure there's money so you're supported. And I'm circling back to make sure that the money covers this and you're treated and cared for to full recovery. That's a depth of care and compassion that's not just, I just want to, I've got something else to do, but I'm going to give you something real quick and hope that covers the need. That's the heart. That's the difference between hearing what Jesus is asking us to do and have compassion versus having kind of an unction to help. I think that's a really, again, the depth of seeking full restoration. We had this last Friday, we had a celebration here, and we had 300 people in this room, 280 to 300 people, something like that came. And we call it our New Life program, and it's the addiction recovery program. We had people that were celebrating their graduation from that. And they stood up on the stage and proclaimed that their life has changed, not just because they stopped doing drugs or alcohol or gambling or whatever the addiction was that they were chained to, but because Jesus set them free. And they had a new understanding of who they were and the value they have. And they were sharing their testimony. And we're here to celebrate with them. It takes us a year to go through that process for people in our New Life program, because it's not just stop doing whatever you're addicted to. It's relearn, for someone that's so beaten down, relearn how much God loves you and the value you have. And when you understand that and receive that, then you can stand in a place of strength to move on and say, now I don't want to go back to this vice, because there's more for me. But it takes walking with someone for a period of time to do it. This is what sets the church apart. There's a reason why when you go across the country, and I've been to Detroit, East St. Louis, Skid Row in LA, New York with my daughter, and I've seen poverty. I've sought it out. I've sought it out because when I was a kid, the story of, I had a life-threatening situation, and my mom, who was a nurse, had to hand me over to a surgeon who she'd seen lose a child just the week before, and trust my life in his hands to have a surgery done. And she didn't really believe in God until she did that action and then went to the chapel, and someone helped her pray. And she had an insight into God's love, and she would say that was like the defining moment of when she came to understand how God could love someone so much, so unconditionally, that they'd want to give up their life for him. So then she kept telling me for the rest of my life, you've been dedicated to God. You're the reason I believe in God. He's got something for you. And so she'd tell me all these stories of Corrie ten Boom and the Christian Missionary Project in China and the God Smuggler and all these things that I didn't want anything to do with because they all sounded crazy and life-threatening, and that's not cool when you're 9. But she said, God's got something for you. I went on to college. I didn't want anything to do with it. I was going to be a doctor. I love physics and biology. I studied pre-med. And when I graduated, I took a year off because I didn't know whether I wanted to go to medical school or I like computer science also. And so I was just applying physical therapy, see what I wanted to do. And I moved on to the hilltop of Tacoma with some friends because it was cheap. I was living for $300 a month. It was great. But it was right after there'd been a shooting recently where some Marine guys, if you know Tacoma history, had a shootout with some local gang members. It was a real rough spot to be in. We had a drug house literally across the street, and I could play my guitar and watch people go in and come staggering out high and collapse on the front yard. There was a laundromat that doubled for a place for ladies of the night to hang out and meet people, and the pimps would be across the way. And I learned a lot. And I didn't want anything to do with it. I was just, it's a nice, cheap place to live. But I was doing Young Life, and we started doing stuff with kids, and we'd invite the kids from the community, because kids are a great place to, like the kids are innocent victims in this, right? So a few months after doing this, a principal who I've been doing Young Life for a number of years at that point, the principal of the school called me and said, hey, come down and meet some people in my office. And I went down there, and I got offered a job. And it was for a nonprofit, and I didn't want to work for a nonprofit because I thought they couldn't pay me. I didn't know what a nonprofit was, totally honestly, I had no clue. Turned it down. My dad called me. He only talks to me like once a month. He called me that night. I said, hey, funny thing, Dad, don't know what to talk about. So I told him about this weird nonprofit thing. And he says, they can pay you. I said, oh, I didn't know that. Still didn't really want the job. And he said, well, call him back and say, because my dad's worried about me. What are you doing living in Tacoma? Go on with your professional life. So he said, call him back and find out, do they have benefits and are they grant funded? Don't know what that is either, but I called them. Sure enough, they were grant funded and they had benefits. So I found out my dad cared because he wanted me to have medical benefits. I hadn't had a dental checkup in a number of years, I guess. And then he said, great, it's grant funded. So in a year, they'll lose their funding. You'll go on and go to medical school and go on to your real life stuff. But you'll get this weird, whatever you're doing in the community out of your system. So yeah, 30 years later, I'm still doing it. But so I worked with kids. I had this job to work in the high school working with kids. And I did that for 17 years. Low-income kids, no one in the family ever gone to college, et cetera, doing stuff, loved it. I had a friend kept calling me saying, I think you're supposed to work with people that are homeless. It's like, no. I love this with kids. It's an easy, there's future, there's hope. Homelessness is hopeless. I don't want anything to do with it. Well, through several acts of God, I ended up getting offered a job and getting fired from my other job and took this job working with people that were experiencing homelessness. And I wasn't excited, but suddenly I saw stuff and connections and the chance to help families and adults and people, and I'm actually helping the kids that I was trying to help, that everyone didn't get helped. Now I'm seeing them as adults. And it's the crisis and the situation they're in. And it transformed me. Suddenly my heart expanded to go, there's more to it. This isn't hopeless. It just needs more compassion. So funny because I'm doing this totally different than first service. So poor slides people are like, where's he going? The stories and the compassion and where my mom had been praying for me, and suddenly this stuff started to align. And I didn't have to go to Africa. I didn't have to smuggle Bibles into Russia. You don't have to get crucified on a cross upside down in China or Japan. There's a mission field right here in our home. And I can tell you, church, one of the larger persistent encampments of people experiencing homelessness is right between this property and Lowe's, between this and the freeway. Has been for years. It's kind of gotten displaced by the building behind us, but just shifted to another location. A couple years ago, I was driving home at night, and it snowed outside, and there was an elderly woman who was trying to cross the street right at the intersection of 27th and what is it that comes through Fircrest right there? Center. And she was stuck in the middle because she couldn't get her walker through the snow. And she's only wearing a nightgown. I don't know why, but literally a nightgown came to here, tennis shoes, no socks, and a walker trying to cross the street at 11 o'clock at night. And people were just passing by, and she was stuck. So I pulled my car around and blocked the street and helped her get across, and was talking to her. And police eventually came because some people, they didn't stop, but people had called the police and said, some lady needs help. Back to that compassion thing where it's like, oh, we'll just call the services and they'll help them, but I don't need to stop. And the police were stuck because they didn't know what to do because they didn't have a place to take her. And fortunately, I was able to call some friends and say, hey, can we get her in tonight? And they said, yes. So I said, we can take her to the women's shelter and she has a place to stay tonight. And they were shocked and they asked me why. And I said, I just happen to know people, don't worry about it. But it's kind of a reality check because that wasn't East Tacoma, that's Fircrest that this is happening in. This is our community. There's 4,000 some people experiencing homelessness around our county. It's everywhere. I'm going to show you a slide here of some of the success stories. Before we do that, about homelessness, one of the questions I get asked the most in my job is people like, oh, you work for the Rescue Mission, why are people homeless? And there's no easy answer. Homelessness is the end result of a whole lot of failed systems. So this is a little graphic showing that. And I believe that the biggest loss is the loss of family. Whatever that family is, whatever that social structure is that you can turn to when things are in crisis, when you lose that, everything else falls apart. But there's all kinds of other things that go into it. So foster care system failures, education, hyper-individualism, trauma, adverse childhood experiences, mental health problems, physical health, substance abuse disorder, living wages, affordable housing, criminal justice system, loneliness, abandonment. And they start to stack on each other. So when one fails, then another fails. I couldn't pay for something, hospital bills, and I lost my job, and now I have this problem. Well, now I'm lonely. I'm not able to make the same wage. I've lost my house. I've lost my kids. I'm depressed. I end up homeless. Now I'm using drugs just to make it through the day because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. The system is geared to keep you in the center of that because there's not a good way out. So at the Rescue Mission, and we'll go to the next one here, I'm just going to share here's some of the stories. If you went to our website, you'd find these. This is Jocelyn, Abby, and Janice. Jocelyn and her kids stayed at our family shelter. And successfully, after a pretty traumatic experience, none of them looked this good, by the way, when they came to us. These are the glam shots after they're done. But Jocelyn and her kids are doing fantastic. They're living, and she's got a job doing some stuff with medical support. Abby came through our New Life program as a single mom who was addicted. And now has her life back, now has her kids back, has actually remarried, and is running business now in Tacoma and has for the last 4 or 5 years. Janice is older. Getting a job wasn't an option, but she was able to find family that were willing to take her in. And she's now back with her family and helps take care of her grandkids. They lost track of her. They didn't know who she was for 15 years. These are the pretty photos. These are the cool things. These are the successes. Let me tell you about some of the failures. When you run the rescue mission, nationally we have marketing, and people do this stuff all over the country, and the marketing groups and stuff will come and say, people don't care what the story is. There's no point to try and tell people what really happens because they won't listen. Really, all you should do is send out flyers to people and say, here's how much it costs for a meal. It's going to be $4.50 to feed someone today. That's all they want to know. How quick in and out can I make this? How transactional can it be? And the way that you'll make the most money is just to market the heck out of that. And then use the money for all the other stuff you do that's good, but it's not genuine. And honestly, it doesn't share much compassion. And I'm not ripping on World Vision or Feed a Starving Child, but it's that idea of, okay, if you just have the one thing that you say, here's the monthly donation amount, and it's relatively cheap, just stick to that and compare it to a latte. The truth is, I can tell you about Christian, who I've known since I coached soccer at Franklin Pierce High School 30-some years ago. At that point, he was living with in a trailer behind his grandparents' place because his parents didn't want him. He ended up becoming homeless a few years later, and has lived on the street for almost 30 years now. He got kicked out of going to several of the local shelters because after being abused by some people, and when he got out of the hospital and the stuff that happened to him, he started carrying a knife. And it fell out of his pocket when he was in the shelter, and so he got blacklisted so he could no longer go to that shelter because he'd now been in it with a weapon. He used to come to the rescue mission, look me up because I've known him for so long. And we would still let him in, but our code is you can come for 90 days. Temporary shelter is 90 days, and then you got to move out for 90 days and live somewhere else. He would stop and we'd talk and try and help him recover from his addiction. He'd gone through cycles in and out over that time. I haven't seen him in 16 months. My guess is he's dead. He wasn't going anywhere. This is his home. There's a guy who's lived at the shelter off and on he's been homeless for almost 40 years. His name is Angry Mike. That's how everyone knows him. Angry Mike's in his mid-70s now. His family died in a fire. He grew up in Parkland. After they died in a fire, he didn't know what to do. He was in his 20s. He had a mental health break, and he started living camping on the site because he didn't want to leave. We finally got him ID after 30-some years of living off the grid. No one knew his birth certificate or could prove that he was alive or a real person. It took us 3 years to get him identification. He's called Angry Mike because his way of making himself valuable at the rescue mission was to go around and pick up all the trash. And he'd get mad at people when they go and drop trash, so he'd yell at him, and they'd call him Angry Mike. Oh, Angry Mike's mad at me. He didn't know any other way to live. For so long, that was his whole existence, just to survive to the next day. And he was actually kind of mad at God that he was in his 70s, because he's like, why am I still alive? Richard, one night I was at Staten having dinner, and this man was in the having dinner. I didn't recognize him, so I stopped to talk to him. I said, why are you here? And he said, I don't know. Interesting response. He's also about 70. So I asked him some questions. Turns out, he said, well, I was going to get married this week. But the lady that I was going to get married to She had some medical issues, and so I sent her money to help her out. And then she had some other issues, so I sent her more money. And it all went to the Philippines, and turns out he got scammed out of his life savings. He couldn't pay rent, and he got evicted. He didn't have family, so he's staying with us, and he didn't know what to do. It's really hard to explain to someone, you just gave away your life savings and you're not going to get married, I'm sorry. But we had to do that and then say, how can we? And he actually had a pension. He had enough money that once we did get him reestablished, he could go back to living independently again. But it still takes a couple months. The last one I'm going to tell you about is Tammy and Barbara. They're currently living in our women's shelter. 2 sisters, they're in their 70s. Tammy has cancer. Barbara's her caregiver. Between the two of them, they make about $1,000 a month in Social Security. But $1,000 a month doesn't pay for rent and food and driving back and forth to Seattle. So they live in their car. They'll live in the rescue mission for 90 days, and then they'll live in their car for 90 days. Then they'll come back and live with us again. We've been trying for 3 years to figure out a way to get them into something more stable and haven't found an answer. There isn't a system or solution. You can't say, go get a job. You realize the dead end people are in when you actually have the conversation and understand how complicated, there isn't an easy solution to this. Richard, there kind of was. But you also realize how slippery the slope is that someone can end up homeless. And if they don't have someone helping them, how long they're going to be stuck there. Those are the people that are alive. We have people that die all the time. We have people that have died of an overdose on the sidewalk in front of one of our buildings. We have people that have died in the car trying to get to us and froze. We have people that have died just going to bed at night and not waking up in the morning because it's a hard life and you're not in good medical shape. I have part of my team, we get calls every week from the coroner's office saying, could you come identify a John Doe or a Jane Doe because no one knows who this person is and they were found in the county. And we'd like to maybe notify their family. And if we can't find the family, there is a whole place in the county where people go that die and no one knows anything about them. And it happens all the time. I can't overstate the trauma that someone goes through who has lost their family connections, has been part of trafficking, has been part of bartering themselves to survive, that have to fight to stay awake all night just so they're not taken advantage of, that's had all their stuff taken from them, not just from people on the streets, but maybe by the city saying we're just clearing stuff out, and so we're dumping all your stuff in the garbage and what you did possess is gone. The feeling of being cold and hungry and not knowing what you're going to do tonight to survive. The level of stress that your body's under to do that for years. I got lost in the wood once hunting. It's stressful to not know where you're going. It's embarrassing, I got lost hunting, but it was a weird feeling. And it was scary. I had faith that my friends would come and find me. I can't imagine that I don't have friends that are going to find me and I'm lost and I'm stuck. Where am I going to go? And your stress level rises, and the more you're in distress, the harder it gets. And the harder it gets to process. So the rescue mission is working on a controversial project for the hardest to serve in the community. And I get mad at the newspaper because they keep calling it controversial. It's literally the name. They've said every article is the controversial project. So the Rescue Mission has purchased 90 acres in Spanaway to help people that are the hardest to serve, the elderly, the people with 2 or more disabilities, people with mental health diagnosis, people that have been homeless for 10 or more years. That's the target population, and we're building a community for 285 of them to come and live and be safe. And the goal is that that's about 25 to 30% of the chronically homeless, hard to serve population in Pierce County. The cool thing is, Brian and I talk about this, we're treating this as a church plant. Because 10% of the units are for missionaries to come and live in the community and say, you're loved. And this is a safe place. And you're accepted here. And the neighbors are so mad, they've distributed flyers to everyone in the community that lives on a lake saying that we're going to poison the water because so many people are going to be living here and they're going to dump all their drugs in the water and ruin the water quality in Pierce County. And I can tell you it's a local church that's leading the fight. Because they don't, and they'll say, it's a great idea, we want you to help people, just don't do it close to us. And I'm not slamming Spanaway churches, I'm just saying, because there's people that are probably for it, the loud voices are against it. And the heart of compassion is noticeably absent. All right, next, this is the vision. I know you guys did vision on Thursday too. So the other thing is, the idea is to create a place that's beautiful for people and safe for people to come to. That's one component. Again, I'm not trying to hide the rescue mission. I'm just saying there is actions and plans and steps and ways to engage. And we'll go to the next one. I don't want to spend too much time on that. My summary, just call to the church, is to ask first, are you willing to pray for eyes to see what's going on right around us? Not to drive by someone who's just on the side of the road and not stop to think that's a child of God. What's really going on? Would you be willing to stop and ask someone their name? Most likely they don't want help from you because they're scared and they're traumatized. But if you pray and ask for eyes to see, I'll guarantee you won't be able to drive down Union Avenue, down 6th Avenue, down Pacific, in Fife, in Puyallup, in Gig Harbor, and not find people that are in distress. And not find people and the remnants of where people are trying to survive and feeling hopeless and that no one cares because everyone goes by them and doesn't stop. And that too often we're living out that role of the Pharisee and the Levite of just walking by on the other side of the road. And there's not one way to help. So the follow-up question is, how do you engage? And what's your gift? What do you have to give? It might be mentoring and talk to someone. Mentoring someone, helping work with kids. There's probably 40 agencies in the community that help with people in poverty on some level. Honestly, therethere's hundreds of churches. And how are the churches engaging? There's not a clear line. So think about it, pray about it, and just ask yourself, what can we do? Now, I'll use I said this earlier, and I'm not ripping on churches. We've done this. We kind of joke internally with my volunteer department that we can tell what church has just done the Rooted series because a bunch of small groups will suddenly come volunteer from a church for about 2 to 3 months and then disappear. Because it was part of the series, like, hey, we should go volunteer as a group. And then find your stamina, find your point. It might be monthly, it might be quarterly. Look around and pray and see what's something that I can do and how do I consistently do that and lead or encourage others to do it. So I'm going to stop there and pray, because I meant to pray to open, and I'm going to now pray to close. And ask for that for all of us. So, Heavenly Father, thank you so much that you love each one of us and that we can come together as a community celebrating how you love us and what you have done for us. And it's fun to be together with friends and family. It's so weird to sit in the pew when you have no family and friends around you. So Lord, I ask that you would help us have a heart to see our neighbors around us that you love, that you care for just as much as you do for me, and to challenge us to say, what are we doing for them? How do we love each other? Stir our hearts with compassion, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. All right, so I'm gonna, and when I step aside, we do have, at the end of our time, in coming together in our gathering, we take communion together. This is a way of remembering Jesus dying on the cross, his body and his blood shed for us, and a chance to pray and reflect on that. So there's places to get this both in the front and the back, and there's gluten-free in the back, and then there's prayer on the sides. So that's my impression of an airline attendant. So thank you guys so much for your time and for just hearing my heart on this.